race fans, and welcome to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Here on a Monday night, we go around the round table and get around a motorsports conversation in It Is Motorsports Madness right here on Speed77, and glad you're along for the ride with us here tonight. I'm Jacob Seelman alongside Tom Baker and the rest of our cast of motorsports characters. And Tom, we got a lot to talk about tonight. I'm excited to get started. We've got eliminations, we've got contenders, we've got crashes, we've got monsters, we've got drivers in new places and new faces. How much can we fit into 2 hours? We're about to find out.
Yeah, this might be the tightest squeeze we've had in a while, but we like to get as much out there as we can and go around the motorsports roundtable as much as we can here on the Madness on Monday nights, which is really where Madness comes in sometimes, trying to fit everything in. We've got two really special guests tonight that we're looking very forward to talking to and giving our listeners a chance to talk to as well. If you're listening to the program and you'd like to be on it, we do allow you to do that. This is a call-in talk show. We encourage you to give us a call and share your opinions, your thoughts on things. It is a family-friendly show, so we do ask you to be respectful and mindful of that. But our phone number is 347-989-0783. If you want to be on the program, 347-989-0783 is the call-in Race Chaser hotline to be on the show here tonight. And, yeah, Jacob, a lot of stuff going on. Of course, we now have we are down now to 12 in the chase, and some very interesting racing taking place yesterday at Dover. I got to tell you, I think some of the drivers that many people would have thought would have been eliminated yesterday were eliminated, but it was really close. They put on good shows.
Oh, they put on great shows. It was a fantastic race at Dover within the field, I thought. Maybe the battle for the lead at times was not what it could have been, but I still think it was a very exciting race at Dover as far as the chase eliminations go. Some surprises, some expected, but Pikester, we were hoping for a Cinderella story, and unfortunately we didn't get one here for round two of the chase, but I do have to give especially A.J. Allmendinger a whole lot of credit. He came basically as close as you could come to advancing to the chase, misses out on the next round by 2 points.
Yeah, I think it surprised me, and I would have to believe it surprised a lot of people, that JTG Daugherty has been relatively consistent, especially in comparison to what they've done in past seasons, this season on tracks that aren't road courses. And yes, they weren't up to snuff with where Allmendinger wanted them to be on Sunday, but that being said, 23rd isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. So I've got to believe that they're going to get better in the seasons to come, and I think a little bit of patience and more success on the road courses. I think, like AJ said, I believe they can still finish as high as fifth in the points, and they'll be looking to get that mark notched up for the end of the season. And I think going forward, they'll look to build on this year and go forward and make that program just better year after year.
I do agree with that. I think this was a huge step in the right direction for JTG Daugherty and for A.J. Allmendinger. And talking about guys who took a big step, not just this season, but at Dover especially. Kyle Magda, want to get you in on this. One driver, we did have a driver race his way in at Dover from outside the chase field, and that was a driver who qualified strong, raced consistently, and did what he had to do to get to round number two, and that's Denny Hamlin. Came in 13th on the chase grid, leaves inside the contender 12 and advances to the next round. He's the one that bumps out A.J. Allmendinger. You've got Hamlin racing his way in, and you've got Casey Kane, who was solidly in the chase field, but ultimately finishes in that 12th seed. It was dicey back there a lot of the day. We saw Hamlin around the back end of the field. We saw Kane, Kurt Busch, who ultimately missed it by just a little bit. That last transfer spot, it seemed, it was about the spot that nobody wanted to have all day long.
Yeah, that's what it seemed, but with Denny Hamlin, I mean, he was running in the top 5, top 10 all day, and I think he must have missed the adjustment and toward the end, and he just fell back. And then, of course, with Casey Kane, of course, going 2 laps down at one point in the race and coming back to the top 20 finish. And they had a pretty good car early on, running top 10 and just didn't work out. But they did it was enough to get him into the next round. And for Kurt Busch, it was unfortunate in his 500 start to not move on. And just they were running a little bit higher in the race early on, and they just, like I said, like Denny Hamlin kind of fell off toward the end. And the 41 team missed the next round of the chase. So, I mean, with his teammate, of course, Kevin Harvick having almost a great day before the tire going down, it was an okay day for Stewart-Haas Racing. Still have the speed. They just not have gotten the wins yet, and hopefully that team will start to get better, of course, with Kevin Harvick. And, of course, with Kurt Busch, he can just, have a couple more races here and try and get another victory before the season's out.
Stewart-Haas Racing, being consistent but not getting wins. Gee, that sounds a little familiar, doesn't it, Tom? Because we were talking about a Stewart-Haas Racing driver who Sunday afternoon probably should have won at Dover, but, of course, as we say, shoulda, woulda, coulda, didn't. And that's been the case for Kevin Harvick all season long. He leads over 200 laps on Sunday afternoon at Dover. It's the 6th straight time he's led the most laps and failed to win the race. SHR, they've had good cars. They've had speed, as Kevin said. They just haven't been able to put a race together.
Well, and, that's the whole thing. The irony is they call Kevin the closer. I was listening to it on the radio because I was traveling, but it sounded like he just brushed the wall, just got into the wall. It didn't sound like. I mean, he was in control of the race, and that's a tough situation because when you make a mistake like that, or if a tire blows, you hit the wall, something, any type of issue along those lines. I mean, once you've done that, you can kill the car for the rest of the race. I mean, even if it can finish the race, it won't be what it once was. And, it's just an unfortunate situation because I don't think it's any one thing that you can put your finger on. I mean, certainly the pit crew in the, early middle part of the year did not always perform the way they needed him to. It made Kevin's job on the track tough, but they've swapped crews. He's got Tony Stewart's championship crew. I mean, it's quite honestly, yesterday was just one of those situations where it just wasn't his day. I mean, he dominated the day and then ended up, banging the car off the wall. When you do that, obviously that's not, it's not going to produce the result that you want. No blame there for anybody, really. Just, as you say, you just haven't been able to put a whole race together lately. And but the saving grace for them is that the format of this chase is such that as long as you make it to the next round, Kevin Harvick now has 3 more races with which to get a win or enough points to get himself to the next round. So I don't really make a lot out of that other than it was a wasted, it was an opportunity lost because obviously if they would have won, they would have been guaranteed the next round, but he got it anyway. So you have a situation where if they can just get rid of the bad luck and misfortune that they've had, I think Kevin's as capable of rattling off a streak of wins as Brad Keselowski or anybody else. And so I just hate seeing I hate to see a driver who dominated a race not be able to finish it because I just know what that what that puts everybody in the race team through in terms of you just can't be happy about your performance this morning if you didn't get the result you wanted, even though the only thing you can really focus on to go forward is your performance because you can't always control the result. So it's a two-headed coin.
Yeah, it really is, and you want to talk about a two-headed coin. On one side of that coin is Kevin Harvick, the other side, Jeff Gordon, who took the lead after Brad Keselowski took it from Harvick when he had his tire problem, and Jeff Gordon basically drove away from everybody. No contest. Gordon gets career win number 92. First win at Dover since 2001. He's done that a couple of times at a couple of different racetracks this season. And Big Daddy now in contention for what would be a fifth Sprint Cup championship. I say in contention, looking like a favorite once again, Tom. How big was this win for Jeff in the context of the rest of this chase?
Oh, I think it was huge. Jeff really needed to get a win, not because he couldn't get a win or because it would have been disastrous, because he would have made it to the next round regardless, but that team needed a win for the momentum of going into 3 tracks, as you and I discussed yesterday, where Hendrick Motorsports and Jeff Gordon run well. You know, you got Kansas, Charlotte, and Talladega. Those are all tracks where I think Jeff Gordon has a good chance to get wins. He won at Talladega or at Kansas in May or June, whenever the early race this year was. You know, he really goes in with some momentum now, guys, and I think that Jeff Gordon has reestablished himself with this win as, if you want to put a Hendrick car that up on the poster with the 2 Penske cars, there's the car that you put there. I know Jimmy Johnson has run well. He's got wins. But right now, Jeff Gordon is the one Hendrick Motorsports car that has really had the fight in the dog all year long, has been up front chasing wins, and he's closed now 4 times and gotten 4 wins. So I think Jeff Gordon has definitely put himself in position to have some real say about the outcome of this chase if he just can keep that going.
Absolutely right. I want to talk about a couple of loose ends to tie up from the rest of the Motorsports weekend as well. Kyle Busch, no contest in Dover on Saturday. He wins the NASCAR Nationwide Series event, 68th career triumph for him in that series. Took the lead from Joey Logano on pit stops and never looked back from there. Completes the Dover sweep. So that's basically all you need to know about the Saturday show. Saturday night in Las Vegas, it was still Kyle Busch, just as a team owner this time. Eric Jones, the 18-year-old, going to victory lane in Sin City. He's not even old enough to gamble, and he's winning a race in his debut at Las Vegas. I have to admit, I was impressed by the 18-year-old Tom, and that Truck Series race was interesting. I thought Bubba Wallace had it for quite some time during the course of that race, but here comes his teammate late in the going, and boy, Eric just took it from him and left.
Well, it's nice to see Eric get himself a win. Again, the KBR trucks, KBM trucks dominating. Just one of those things. I mean, this Truck Series this year has belonged to Kyle Busch in some form or fashion, whether he's in the truck or it's one of his trucks. It's basically belonged to them for the most part this season. But I think the youngster's definitely earned it, and he's going to be a driver that I think somebody's got to take a look at for next year. Whether he's back in something of Kyle's or somebody else grabs him and gives him a full-time schedule or whatever, somebody's got to take a serious look at this kid and really give him an opportunity, because it seems like every time he gets in that truck, he's up front with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about drivers who are up front, we're going to take this opportunity to take a caution flag, but when we come back, we'll have more Truck Series conversation, including a driver who has been up front for the majority of the 2014 season when he's been in a Truck Series machine and took it all the way to victory lane a couple races ago at Loudon. Cole Custer joins us when we come back. You are listening to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser. Online, we return after this.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading material supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit StockCarSteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
Packers,
Vikings,
Red State,
Blue State.
We come from different places.
Uptown,
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
half empty,
Half full.
But no matter how different we are, we're all connected, and we can all make a difference. That's why United Way brings people, expertise, and resources together to improve the education, income, and health of our communities, the building blocks for a better life. When we live united, our efforts, magnified by others, add up to real change. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly, so do our communities. But real change won't happen without you.
Live United.
So let's look beyond our differences.
Live United.
One by one, let's make a difference. Let's reach out a hand to one and influence the condition of all.
Live United.
Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and our entire cast of Motorsports Insiders around tonight's roundtable as we talk all things motorsports. And race fans, if you want to get in on the conversation, give us a call on the Race Chaser hotline. Just dial up 347-989-0783 to chat with us or any of our live guests tonight. Once again, that's 347-989-0783. And we're getting a chance now to talk with a driver who is coming off a very big weekend just over a week ago now from Loudon, New Hampshire. Picked up the victory in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series event at the Magic Mile and becomes the youngest winner at just 16 years old in NASCAR National Series history. Cole Custer from Haas Racing Development and Bill McAnally Racing over on the K&M Pro Series East Side joins us now on the Madness. Cole, first off, really glad to have you back on the show tonight, and a huge win for you after earlier this season getting selected to the NASCAR Next program. Now you've got your first Truck Series win. It's been a little bit of a whirlwind for you the last couple of months. What's it been like here just in the last couple of days since the victory? Have you had time to start soaking it all in yet?
Yeah, I've kind of soaked it all in. I've done a lot of interviews the past week, but it's a few days, and it's just been a pretty awesome week that I'll never forget.
Talk about the moves you had to make late, because I know a lot of us were watching the strategy there and thinking 4 tires was going to mire you back in traffic, and you were able to slice your way back through this field to pick up the victory. But how nervous were you there in the last couple laps with all the traffic that you had to fight through after that pit stop?
I was pretty nervous. I mean, our whole team was. We didn't expect that many people to take 2, but the 4 tires definitely at the end helped us get back up there. It was coming from 7th. I mean, we had to get some real good restarts. It's too hard to pass people once we get all single file at New Hampshire. But, I mean, I just keep telling people that it just worked out perfectly. I mean, on the first restart, I was starting 7th, and everybody Timothy Peters dipped real low, so I tried to go 3 wide, and I was able to get 3 spots off of that. And then the next restart, the next 2 restarts worked perfectly, and we were able to get back up there.
I was going to ask you about that, Cole, because I was watching the race, and as Jacob said to you when we were talking to you during the break, I was cheering for you, not because I'm biased in any way, but because we're all about the young guys making good, and you've certainly worked really, really hard to get to that point, and done so well in your earlier starts. But I was going to ask you about that restart, because watching it, I couldn't tell if it was one of those situations where you kind of just went with what you saw in front of you and decided to make the move, or if it was something where you kind of told yourself before they threw the green that the only chance you thought you had was to pick spots off quick, so you decided to you planned it before the green you were going to basically go for broke. Which kind of more closely resembles what actually happened there?
Oh, I knew that on the restart I had to do something. We weren't going to get all the spots just by getting single file and then picking them off one at a time with that many laps left. So I knew that I had to do something, go 3 wide or pass somebody real aggressively. So, I mean, at the first one, when Timothy Peters took low, I was going to go down there with them, but then I saw in the middle there was this huge hole, so I went in there. And we got able to pass 3 cars through that, and then the next few restarts we were able to just pass another car and then pass another car, and then I got next to Crafton and I was able to get that by him on the restart. So it worked out perfectly, and I mean, I just knew that I had to do something on those restarts to get back up there.
Well, I got to tell you, your crew chief was interviewed by the television crew there just before that first restart, and he seemed to be second guessing himself just a little bit, wondering if maybe at the end of the day he made the right move. But he said, we've got a really good truck and a really good driver, and then you went and made those moves and got yourself up there. And my first reaction to that was, well, he grew up about 5 years of experience in about the last 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely pretty nervous. I saw that after he made the call, and it worked out good for us. I mean, there's no way when you're the leader, pretty much whatever you do, everybody behind you can do the opposite. So it was hard for us to make the right call on that. But I mean, 4 tires worked out perfectly for us. We were able to get back up there and get the win. So it didn't really affect much.
And Cole, one of the things I want to add to all that real quickly, I know looking at this for you, it's a breakthrough for you, obviously, with everything you've been working towards. But did it surprise you at all that you guys were able to get the Truck Series victory as quickly as you did this season, just your 7th start? I know it's really been a learning curve for you here. Talk a little bit about that. Was that above expectations, perhaps?
Well, I knew the whole year that we had the speed to do it. Even before, when we were testing a couple of times, we were always really fast in our tests and our practice and qualifying and everything. So it was just, I knew we had the speed. But even my first race at Martinsville, I realized that these guys in the Truck Series, they really know how to race, and they know how to put you in spots and how to work traffic and how to just do everything right with those, so the trucks handle a little bit differently. But after the first race, I knew it was going to be a lot harder, and those next few races, I just tried to get better at racing and getting used to the air because it affected so much in the Truck Series. And once I got used to that and I knew that, and I got used to racing those guys, I knew I could race them. I think that New Hampshire was a place that I knew I would be pretty good at, and I've won at before, so I knew that we had a good shot at New Hampshire.
Cole, you've won in the NASCAR K&N Series this year, and of course you had the truck win. Would you rank Loudon as last Saturday's win as your biggest victory of your NASCAR career?
I would definitely say so. Those 2 wins, both at New Hampshire, were pretty big for us and our team, because actually probably 3/4 to 2/3 of our guys are from New England and up there. So it was a big deal for our whole team, and it was just definitely a perfect day for us. I mean, we led a couple practice, we were fast in practice at least, and then we got the pole and then led a bunch of laps in the race and won it. So it was definitely one of the best races for us in my career.
Yeah, and Cole, you turn 17 next year. Have you expressed any interest of maybe running super speedways in America like Pocono or Kentucky?
Well, I can't run any in a truck. I'd have to do it in ARCA.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's what I said. But yeah.
Okay. I think we're thinking about it. It might be just a couple races, but we're not for sure yet. But we definitely want to.
I'm interested to look at this, Cole, for you. Obviously, it's a little bit of an interesting spot that you're in, like Kyle said, being 17, so not able to run, obviously, the full schedule at the national level, and it kind of puts you at a little bit of an in-between spot. Are we going to see you next year just running whatever races you can, kind of putting together a patchwork schedule, or are we going to see you chase points somewhere in 2015?
We probably won't run for a championship. We'll run some races, just kind of like how we're doing this year, we think, and hopefully we can kind of do the same, kind of do similar to what we're doing this year, and just kind of run to the races that we can, and just try and go for everything that we can on every single race and go for the win.
Real quickly, what's it been like? I know Tom hit on it earlier with talking about the crew chief calls and everything that you and your team went through this weekend, but what's it been like with the team this year, and especially with your crew chief, Joe Shear, who brings so much experience to the top of that pit box? What's the chemistry been like between the two of you this year?
It's been good. I mean, from the start of our testing, I've said before that we've had really fast cars. Our panel's really good, so it's been good, and our changes seem to be worked pretty well. So it's just, I feel like we've worked well together the whole season, and I think we can only get better.
And I know certainly we're looking forward to seeing how far you can climb here. Getting ready to wrap up 2014, I know you're looking ahead, but I know all this success and the win couldn't be possible without a lot of people, supporters behind you, Cole. So I want to give you a chance to give them some shout-outs. Who makes it happen for Cole Custer?
Yeah, I mean, without Haas Automation and Gene Haas and Smith Transport and Barry Smith and everybody who's helped us this year, and with Mobile One and everybody, it's been a great year for us, and without them, we couldn't have done it.
And certainly we're looking forward to seeing what you've got ahead of you. What's the next race we're going to see you at this year? I know we've seen you on most of the short tracks, all the tracks that you can run in the truck. Are there any more truck starts on the docket for you in 2014?
Yeah, we have Martinsville and Phoenix left in the truck. Now we're going to do the K&N race at Phoenix later in the year, too.
Double duty at Phoenix. I know you'll be looking forward to that, Cole. We appreciate you coming back on the show to take some time and to talk with us again. Congratulations on the win at Loudon. I know that's a memory that'll stick with you for a long time to come, and we're looking forward to seeing what you can do for not just the rest of this season, but going into 2015. You got a bright future ahead of you, and looking forward to seeing you back on track soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks, Cole.
That's Cole Custer, and we are going to take a caution flag here on Motorsports Madness, but when we come back, still much more racing conversation ahead. We'll go open wheel central with Joel Sebastianelli and continue to move around the round table. Right after this, you are listening to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Race Chaser Online and Speed77 Radio has gone live. All three of the Race Chaser Online Speed77 Radio branded podcasts can now be found live on blogtalkradio.com. Look for Motorsports Madness Monday nights at 7 p.m., hosted by Jacob Seelman and Tom Baker, along with all of their cast of characters, covering everything from NASCAR, IndyCar, F1, Super Dirt Car Series Modifieds, World of Outlaws, Sprint Cars, V8 Supercars, and everything in between. That's Motorsports Madness, Monday nights at 7 p.m. Then on Tuesday nights, it's time to talk New York Dirt with Turn 5 Live, hosted by Steve Ovens, Clint Miller, and Brad Ovens. They talk everything from the local scene in the Finger Lakes to the national dirt racing news. That's Turn 5 Live, Tuesday nights, at 7 p.m. on blogtalkradio.com/turn5live. Then on Thursday nights, it's time to go full fendered action with the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show, Thursday nights at 7 p.m., hosted by Tom Baker, Jacob Seelman, and Kyle Souza. That's the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show, Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Go to blogtalkradio.com/racechaseronline, and for all of the news, views, and driver interviews, go to www.racechaseronline.com.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
Powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, leading tonight's roundtable discussion with our cast of Motorsports insiders, and we move to Open Wheel Central from the NASCAR world and bring in somebody who knows a little bit about fancy food, a little bit about madness, because that's what we're so good at here. And you know, sometimes it's just nice to hear him complain. Of course, we're talking about our resident wine and cheeser, Joel Sebastianelli, back to talk all things that lack fenders, Indy, F1, you name it, he's probably got it. Joel, first off, glad to have you back. Second off, big nugget of breaking news coming out just this morning, and I think you were talking about it, we were talking about it, Robin Miller was talking about it. I didn't believe it personally, but hello, Simon Pagenaud, signing with Team Penske for 2015. Besides the esteemed Mr. Miller, who saw this coming?
Wow. This is the first domino in what could be a very, very long line of dominoes falling in the IndyCar silly season, and everything depended on this move. Simon Pagenaud was the number one free agent, and whether he wanted to sign with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports again, there was a possibility of maybe going to Andretti. First, without Pocono, coming pretty much from Robin Miller at Racer, and nobody else. And that was it. And with him moving to Penske now, driving the number 22 for 2015, first of all, this is huge just for Penske alone. In 2014, these guys combined for 7 victories, 30 top 5 last season. So this is, without a doubt, the team to beat, and one of the strongest teams we've seen top to bottom in IndyCar for some time. So where does this affect all the other teams? First of all, Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports is without a number one driver. You figure Michael Lotion will be back, but he probably won't be elevated to number one status. So how do they fill that seat? First of all, there's James Hinchcliffe. He was the other big domino that was waiting for Pagenaud to kick things off by falling first. He could re-sign with Andretti Autosport. Again, it's where he's been for the past 3 years, and Michael Andretti is trying to secure funding as we speak right now to keep him at that team. It's perhaps where he would be most comfortable, but he would be the number one guy at Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports, and I could certainly see him going there. Gabby Chavez is a possibility. He actually tested at Homestead with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports today, and there's a possibility that after winning the Indy Lights Championship and having a scholarship, he could move up from Velarde Auto Racing and Indy Lights into a Schmidt-Peterson seat. If not, Jack Harvey's also a possibility. He won 4 of the last 5 races in Indy Lights last season. His only season in Indy Lights, but he has experience overseas. He's a highly touted member of the McLaren Young Driver program. So at 21 years old, the Brit is certainly a candidate for that seat. And, of course, there's other guys, too. There's rumors Jack Hawksworth could move into a second car at A.J. Foyt with his team now alongside Takuma Sato, which means that seat may be open. Sebastian Saavedra is unlikely to come back at KVSH, so there may be an open seat there. There are so many things to talk about and so many drivers that could fill these seats that everything went from relatively mundane and quiet to just exploding with activity within the last few hours.
Yeah, absolutely right. And I'm glad somebody else agrees with me for a change. It seems like usually I'm on an island by myself. But I said to Tom earlier today that all of a sudden Team Penske goes from being a really, really good team to, holy crap, they've got 4 all-star drivers. And there was a time when we looked at Chip Ganassi Racing, Target Chip Ganassi, with having Tony Kanaan and Scott Dixon as being the power team, so to speak, even though Penske was more decorated. But now you look at Ganassi as a team where they've got two really good drivers and two kind of drivers, but you've got a team Penske where, like you said, Joel, it's deep. 4 drivers, each one won a race last season, and 30 top fives means it's not just the team to beat, it's the most consistent team, even when they don't win on a weekly basis. This is where life gets fun, and I'll tell you, Team Penske won the championship this past season with Will Power, and we had 3 Penske drivers in contention for a championship. I dare say we're going to have 4 Team Penske drivers in contention for a championship in 2015, because I don't see a scenario where any one of them is going to give up any ground.
And let's not forget how good Simon Pagenaud was last season, too. He ended up finishing 5th overall in points, finished 20th at the double points race in Fontana at the end of the year. But he was one of only 3 drivers mathematically eligible, albeit he was still hanging on by a thread in that final race, and it was highly unlikely he'd wind up the champion. But he was still one of only 3 guys, and 2 of those guys were Penske guys. So him joining the fray along with Juan Pablo Montoya, Will Power, and Helio Castroneves is huge. Now I think there's an impetus on Chip Ganassi to counter somehow. Is James Hinchcliffe possibly? Could we see him go to Ganassi? It's something I haven't heard talked about, so it leads me to believe it's unlikely. Then again, outside of Robin Miller, who talked about this being a possibility with Pagenaud going to Penske? So you really never know what's going on in there. Quite frankly, I would say that Ryan Briscoe's seat could be up in the air, because while Charlie Kimball in the 83, so a mix of disappointing results, only 1 podium this season. He finished 3rd in the second race in Detroit. Did have a couple of top 5s, but I think Charlie Kimball is performing on Charlie Kimball level, and he has secure sponsorship there. With Briscoe, outside of a couple moments of, I guess if you want to call it brilliance, you could, finish 4th at Pocono, and that was his best race of the year. Other than that, he hasn't really been competing with the red cars and the Target-sponsored team. I think that there was an expectation that maybe he would do that. So the question is, does Chip Ganassi now try to go out and replace at least Ryan Briscoe, I think, would be the number 1 candidate to be replaced on that team if they were going to have to replace one? Is this the opportunity that Sage Karam finally gets, a young driver, some new energy, a new face with a chance to completely shock IndyCar? I mean, I think this kid's ready to compete. We've seen what he can do with sports cars. We've seen what he can do in Indy Lights. We've even seen at times what he could do at the Indy 500 in an IndyCar when he got the opportunity to compete there in 2014. So Sage Karam may be the next guy who's ready to jump up with Ganassi, unless Ganassi tries to go after another big name. There's just way more questions than answers at this point. We could play this game all night, but it just opens up a bunch of fascinating doors for the IndyCar silly season.
Well, Joel, one of the things that occurred to me about this, I mean, everybody laughed at Robin Miller, but his logic was sound. It was all about motor manufacturers and Chevy and Honda, and again, you had to be thinking that if he was going to make a change, he was going to make sure it was a step up, and so that would leave us to believe that it was either going to be Ganassi or it was going to be Penske, and if it was going to be Chevy or if it was going to be Honda, that was kind of going to determine which way it was going to go. So the logic was sound. The question becomes, now does Ganassi go out and try to get a big name like Hinchcliffe to replace Chase Briscoe simply to keep up with the Joneses? I mean, does he feel the need to have that big name driver, or does he just sort of stick with his development methodology and move Sage Karam up and give him a shot?
Well, see, I think it's something in between those two options that you said, because you need to do something to counter, but it's not necessarily about a big name. It's about who's going to give you the best chance to win now and in the near future. And I think if we're talking the near future, I think Sage Karam may be that guy, because Ryan Briscoe, to me, has approached and I certainly don't mean this as an insult to either of them, and, don't read too much into it, but I think he joins some guys like Alex Tagliani, for example, guys who have been around the series for a while, and they've already reached their ceiling. They're not going to get any higher, and I suppose as opposed to a younger driver, Briscoe and guys in that camp, their floor may be higher than the floor for some of the younger guys. But for a younger guy like Sage Karam, the ceiling is exponentially higher, what he could accomplish, because there's a lot of people who think that with the right equipment, a few years down the road, the right opportunity, Sage Karam has the talent to be a future champion. So looking at it like that, I don't really see what you add besides just another year of stagnant outlier top 10 performances by keeping a guy like Ryan Briscoe. I think you're better off taking that chance and hoping it'll pay off at some point in the near future, which is what Sage Karam would do. As for James Hinchcliffe, I think the best option is either Andretti or going to Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports. And it's really a case of, do you want to be a big fish in a small pond, the undisputed number one driver at SPM, or do you want to be a slightly bigger fish in a bigger pond, not being the number one driver at Andretti Autosport and fighting to stay up at the top of that team? I think that there's certainly pros and cons to be weighed for both, but we've seen that Simon Pagenaud was able to compete for a championship and compete up front with Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports. And one other thing worth noting, too, about Pagenaud is this will give him an opportunity to compete on ovals, because that's the one thing that's keeping him from really being a complete package overall. And Will Power, once he joined Penske, started getting better and better at ovals. He has a victory on an oval in the last two seasons. His first 9 wins all came on road courses. 3 of his 22 in IndyCar have come on ovals. So just 3, but Power's getting better and better. And, of course, it's no coincidence that now this is the season he finally won the title after ovals were a bit of an Achilles heel for him. Simon Pagenaud showed some improvement this year, and in a Penske car, which is going to be obviously one of the best teams we've seen in quite some time in IndyCar, now he has an opportunity where he can really let that talent show, have a car capable of winning on ovals no matter what, and he's certainly a title contender for this year.
Okay, so let's look at this from Ryan Briscoe's point of view now for a minute, or Chase Briscoe, as I called him a little while ago. Sorry, Ryan. If you're Ryan Briscoe, are you making phone calls to other teams at this point? Have you been inquiring about what the potential interest might be? Is your agent working the phones? Are you a little nervous right now about your situation, and did that just increase with the fact that Simon Pagenaud just went over and signed with Chip's biggest competition in the series?
I don't think it could hurt to be doing that. I certainly don't think it could hurt. The question is just really if he knows more than we do. I don't think that his ride is safe. I think he should start talking to people. But again, it's not as though his season was really poor. I think 11th was a bit of a disappointment based on what some people wanted to see out of him. But let's not forget that he was nothing if he wasn't consistent. He wasn't somebody that we saw being involved in multiple incidents. Compare his performance to somebody like Sebastian Saavedra at KVSH Racing, and you take Ryan Briscoe every single time. He did have multiple top 10s. He had a top 5 at Pocono. He just never really moved to that next level that people were hoping that he would make it to with Chip Ganassi Racing this season. I criticized it as being a very IndyCar move when Ganassi signed him instead of opting for young talent, instead of opting for something exciting. I think with Ryan Briscoe, we had a generally good idea of what we were going to get, and that's exactly what we got with him. So the question is, can you improve now or in the very near future by adding somebody else? And I think you can, and I think that's why his Ganassi. But we mentioned Jack Hawksworth possibly going to Boyd. There's going to be more than likely a ride open at KVSH. Even if Sebastian Saavedra was performing well on track, when your father comes to blows with an engineer at the track, as happened at Sonoma, it's generally a pretty decent hit to your chances of staying with that team or that company in the future. It usually doesn't help you much pulling a move like that. So you figure he's probably gone there, and there will be a ride opened up there. Possibly a hole at Andretti, possibly a hole at Schmidt-Peterson Motorsports again, although I don't know if they'd really elect to put Briscoe in that seat. I don't think he'd be a candidate there for numerous reasons. So there's definitely the possibility that Ryan Briscoe won't lose a ride in IndyCar completely, but it doesn't hurt to have the phone open and start making some calls, even if we do find out in the end that he'll stay with Ganassi for another year.
It's going to be interesting to see, isn't it, Joel? Hang on tight just for a second. We're going to slide in a commercial break. We'll come back and wrap up with you, talk a little bit of F1, preview the Suzuka race this weekend. That's next after this business. You're listening to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online.
The odds of a young girl being discovered by an industry insider while singing to herself pumping gas? 1 in 300 million. The odds of the daughter of a clergyman from Severn, Maryland spending 11 weeks at number 1 on the U.S. singles charts? 1 in 19 million. The odds of going on to win 6 Grammy Awards? 1 in 1.4 million. The odds of selling over 40 million records? 1 in 800,000. The odds of this musician and performer having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 110. I'm Toni Braxton, and I encourage you to learn the signs of autism at autismspeaks.org. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference. Autism Speaks. It's time to listen. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading material supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a Motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit StockCarSteel.com or SRI-supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, and right now, Joel Sebastianelli around the round table talking open wheel central here on the Madness. And race fans, if you want to get involved in the conversation, give us a shout. You're on the Race Chaser hotline, 347-989-0783. Again, that's 347-989-0783. And Joel, before we went to break, we got in about all the silly season conversation from IndyCar that we could muster. I want to turn and talk about F1 for just a second, because we've got what, in my opinion, is always one of my favorite F1 races on the schedule coming into this weekend. I think part of it's just because I love this racetrack, but it always seems to be somewhat intriguing, too, during the race itself. Suzuka, the Japanese Grand Prix this weekend. I know we've seen Mercedes dominance all year, but there's just something about this race as being one of the races that I always personally enjoy on the F1 calendar, and I'm looking forward to this weekend. I think it's going to be fun.
I think so, too. Usually is if you can keep your eyes open up until 2 a.m. when the lights go out. But it's a racetrack that Sebastian Vettel has dominated at since 2009. He's won 4 of the last 5. And in 2011, Jenson Button picked up the victory, breaking the original streak by Vettel with McLaren. It's not going to be one of those guys, you would think. But then again, we did see a bit of a resurgence from Sebastian Vettel, finishing second a couple of weeks ago in Singapore. And you never know what's going to happen. Japan, always known for a little bit of weather sometimes. So it used to be more of an issue at the Mount Fuji circuit. But even in Suzuka, you never quite know what you're going to get. A very exciting racetrack. And now the championship battle is heated up again. After being down 22 points, the victory in Singapore now has Lewis Hamilton leading the World Championship once again over his teammate Nico Rosberg. So the two of them, we know it's going to be a fight down at the very end of the season. And this is one of those races where Nico really needs to step it up, and it's not a track he's performed very well at. Just one top 5 in his career there, and it came with Williams in 2009, if you can believe that. Lewis actually won the Japanese Grand Prix in 2007 his very first year in Formula One, but that wasn't at Suzuka. That was actually at Fuji Speedway. So you can kind of throw that out as a bit of an outlier, but still 5 top 5s in the Japanese Grand Prix in his career. We know that Lewis Hamilton has always been in better equipment than Nico Rosberg up until this season, but still the momentum is in Lewis's favor. The mental edge after Spa, after we all thought perhaps Nico Rosberg had it, it seems as though maybe Rosberg is cracking a little bit here. It's putting a lot of weight on his shoulders, and I think that to a certain extent, the pressure is really off Lewis Hamilton here. Yes, you have to perform well, but you've already clawed your way back. What do you have to lose? Because everyone's looking at Nico Rosberg. We've seen Lewis Hamilton in a title chase before. We know he's capable of winning a title. He did it in 2008, finished second in 2007 when he was a rookie, and he's finished in the top 5 every single year he's been in Formula One in the World Drivers' Championship. So for Lewis Hamilton, it's a guy who's been here. We know he can handle the pressure. All eyes are on Nico Rosberg now and what he can do this weekend.
Yeah, all eyes will be on Nico, especially mine, because I would like to see this title fight go all the way down to the wire. It's now within a couple of points, Joel, and this has the potential to seesaw before the end of this season. Do you think we're shaping up for one of these battles where this could potentially go back and forth between the two Mercedes counterparts all the way till the final race in Abu Dhabi?
I've been saying that since the very beginning. I thought that these two guys were the ones to beat, and while everyone was piling on Lewis Hamilton's bandwagon, I said that Nico Rosberg was actually my pick for the champion this year. I thought that we'd see Lewis being the one making the mistakes, and as it turns out, it's actually been the other way around, but Nico Rosberg has certainly been up there, and he's led half the season and performed very, very well, particularly in the beginning part before some of the mechanical gremlins have struck, like in Singapore, for example, losing the brakes in Montreal. So if there's been any Achilles heel for Mercedes, it's been that they haven't been able to be perfect 100% of the time. You know, there are some reliability issues that the team has seen that prevented them from honestly and truly running away 110% with this, as opposed to running away with about 80% of the F1 season. I think the race that's really going to be the one to watch is going to be the inaugural Russian Grand Prix. It's going to be racing around the Olympic Village in Sochi, and that's going to be on October 12th. It's a track that nobody aside from Sebastian Vettel in a road car has been on. Nobody will have seen this until they actually get on the track besides him, and it's not as though that really provides any sort of advantage, Sebastian Vettel doing that. It's not as though he raced. He just did it as a promotional thing. So it's going to be a track where nobody has a predetermined advantage. We still don't know quite how that track is going to run. There's so many variables there with that weekend that I think whoever can be more consistent down the road, and I think whoever wins that race is going to be the one that ends up winning this thing. Now, of course, there's a monkey wrench thrown in that the final race of the season at Abu Dhabi, in order to manufacture excitement, Formula One has determined it's going to be a double points race, and I really, really hope that doesn't turn things completely upside down, because it would make a complete mockery of F1 if it did so. I think we'll get a deserving champion either way, but my eyes aren't so much on this week. My eyes are on Sochi and who performs well there, because I think that could really swing with just 3 races to go after that race. We're going to have a much better idea of what the championship picture is going to look like, because that race right there, nobody has any advantage coming in. I think people are really on equal footing, particularly the two teammates, Lewis and Nico.
Yeah. And, oh, by the way, in addition to all this going on, championship fights and driver rivalries and all that, we even have a 2015 calendar for F1. And can we be shocked at consistency, Joel? I think I can be shocked at consistency. The calendar's virtually identical, save for the addition of the Mexican Grand Prix following the Circuit of the Americas stop, which gets moved back to the last weekend in October for 2015. But all in all, everything looks pretty much status quo in F1, and I think this is the first time in a while, at least, that I can remember that Bernie Ecclestone hasn't at least attempted, anyways, to shake up the calendar with a couple of new races or something like that. We all saw what happened ultimately with the much maligned race that they were trying to get at New Jersey that just fell apart time after time after time. I'm kind of liking the whole consistency thing here for a change.
Yeah, in 2016 there could be many more changes, The European Grand Prix is going to be held for the first time since 2012 in Azerbaijan. Yeah, that's part of Formula One's global expansion for you. It's going to be a street circuit in Baku. The German Grand Prix will be back to Hockenheim, so obviously that's going back and forth. And in 2016, the Port Imperial Circuit in New Jersey is still actually on the docket. I don't believe that's going to happen. You'll see pigs fly before you see that event happen in New Jersey, but it's still listed on the tentative calendar for 2016. As far as 2015 goes, there is a lot of consistency. The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez in Mexico City is going to be completely different from what you've ever seen. If you actually go on YouTube, the only video that's out there is Spanish language, but search out there for the changes that they're making to it. They released a video, and it's going to be a completely revamped circuit. The track layout is actually going to change a little bit. It's going to be very modernized, very Formula One. So I think it's going to be a fantastic stop for Formula One. Great to have another track in this area of the world that's really an underserved market for Formula One. Only thing I would love to see, I'd love to see Sao Paulo and the Brazilian Grand Prix, the final race of the season, as opposed to Abu Dhabi 2 weeks later. But it appears that's where Formula One wants to have it. That's where they're going to get it. And perhaps this is going to be consistently the home for the season finale of Formula One.
Yeah, and we haven't even gotten into discussing the whole IndyCar calendar debate, and we actually have 12 races now that are confirmed with dates for 2015, which is good news for IndyCar. Obviously waiting on Fontana, Iowa, Pocono, and Milwaukee to get their seats, looking at the Dubai date that we talked about on last Monday's Motorsports Madness show, Joel. So a lot of interesting things going on the IndyCar side of things, but certainly a lot of news going on Suzuka this weekend. We know you'll be following it, and we'll look forward to seeing you back on here a week from tonight to break it all down and see which one of the Mercedes drivers we'll be talking about this week.
We'll see not just which Mercedes driver we're going to be talking about, but who knows how many more dominoes could possibly fall in IndyCar this offseason that really needed a boost because it's so long. Certainly has one now. It's going to keep IndyCar in the news for quite a while. So great to be on as always. And wherever you may be this weekend and whatever racing you may be taking in, be sure to enjoy it.
Absolutely right. We're taking a caution flag. We'll be back to get down and dirty right after this. You're listening to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. We'll be right back.
Race Chaser Online and Speed77 Radio has gone live. All three of the Race Chaser Online Speed77 Radio branded podcasts can now be found live on blogtalkradio.com. Look for Motorsports Madness Monday nights at 7 p.m., hosted by Jacob Seelman and Tom Baker, along with all of their cast of characters, covering everything from NASCAR, IndyCar, F1, Super Dirt Car Series Modifieds, World of Outlaws, Sprint Cars, V8 Supercars, and everything in between. That's Motorsports Madness, Monday nights at 7 p.m. Then on Tuesday nights, it's time to talk New York Dirt with Turn 5 Live, hosted by Steve Ovens, Clint Miller, and Brad Ovens. They talk everything from the local scene in the Finger Lakes to the national dirt racing news. That's Turn 5 Live, Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. on blogtalkradio.com/Turn5Live. Then on Thursday nights, it's time to go full fendered action with the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show, Thursday nights at 7 p.m., hosted by Tom Baker, Jacob Seelman, and Kyle Souza. That's the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show, Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Go to blogtalkradio.com/RaceChaserOnline, and for all of the news, views, and driver interviews, go to www.racechaseronline.com.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the madness here on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker around tonight's round table as we start the second half of our Monday night excursion through the world of motorsports. And race fans, you want to get involved in on the action? You can do that. Just give us a call to talk motorsports with us at 347-989-0783. One more time, that number, 347-989-0783. And Tom, I vote we get a little down and dirty, talk some dirt track racing, and boy, there was a lot of it over this weekend. Some interesting moments, some unexpected terminology, and one driver who just continues to do what he does. Can we turn shotzing into a term in the dictionary? I think it deserves it. I really do, because after what Donnie Schatz did this weekend, he deserves his own word in Webster's.
Well, at least in the sprint car version of Webster's anyway. What can you say? It feels redundant, but we talk all the time on this show about momentum. And, of course, keep in mind that the Outlaws run probably the most number of races of any major series in the country during the year, so there's plenty of time to build momentum. But when you have the kind of year that Schatz is having, especially recently, it's just amazing, honestly, and again, you wonder, Jacob, how this happens. I mean, this is one of the most competitive series in the country, and there's all kinds of good equipment, good crew chiefs, just drivers talented off the charts, and yet Schatzy just keeps on winning. You just wonder how one guy can just be so dominant.
Yeah, absolutely right. And he picked up wins number 23 and 24 over the weekend at Bloomington Speedway, home of the King, Steve Kinzer, and, yes, I'm about to say it, Berlin Raceway, covered in dirt for the World of Outlaws STP Sprint Cars for the first time. That 7/16 mile oval is a fun racetrack when you put the dirt down on it. I enjoyed listening to and watching some of the show. Donnie was just brilliant on a slick racetrack, and that 24th victory, Tom, at Berlin Saturday night, that set up for Schatzy a new, for him, personal best single-season record. It's the most wins he's ever had in one season with the Outlaws, and we're getting ready to go to a racetrack and a race in the Williams Grove National Open that Donnie has absolutely dominated over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it really makes you think. I mean, 24 wins and all of the necessary confidence going into the final stretch here. It really makes you wonder how can he actually run the table. I mean, you start really thinking about things in that kind of light. Is he going to lose again the rest of the year? And yeah, Williams Grove. Schatzy's just been so strong, and it almost the sad part about this, Jacob, is that I think in the sport, if you look at it from a big picture standpoint, all the coverage is on the major series: NASCAR, IndyCar, sports cars, F1. The World of Outlaws don't get a lot of major national coverage, and that's unfortunate, because this is as difficult of a racing series to conquer as there is, with the amount of races that they run and the number of different types of tracks, and the wear and tear on drivers and crews and all of the travel and everything else. NASCAR dwarfs in comparison to this series, and I look at this and see Schatz winning 24 races and think this may be one of the greatest accomplishments in motorsports ever, and yet it's going to get just a smidgen of the respect it deserves, because I think it's still considered by most outside the motorsports beltway media to be a short track racing series, not to mention, of course, the recent controversies over the last few years surrounding sprint cars. But I just think it's unfortunate, because I think what Schatzy's doing here is epic. I think that's the word I would use to describe it. It's epic, and it's not going to get nearly the attention that it really should.
No, absolutely not. And while we're talking about Donnie Schatz, and I know we moved into the open wheel segment, but I want to backtrack for just a second here while we're talking about Schatz and that Tony Stewart Racing team. Take a step back. I wanted to hit this earlier, and we didn't get a chance to, but I feel like we can kind of loop around and grab it while we're here, Tom, because got a lot out of this today, honestly. And Donnie Schatz and the Tony Stewart Racing team, yeah, there's the name, Tony Stewart, had a press conference earlier today following what I thought was a really, really, really solid run over the weekend in Dover. Ran in top 10 form a whole lot of the race, was in the top 10 for a good portion of the race, finished 15th. I felt like personally that didn't belie the effort that team had, but just, what a tale of the last couple of days for Tony Stewart, because you go from one of the biggest highs of having a run where you actually feel like you can start getting back on your feet again, and then you go in and we definitely saw a side of Tony that up until a couple months ago I didn't realize existed. But I'll tell you, I want to focus on the positive in all this. I know there was a lot of news, some that we knew and some that we didn't, to come out of that press conference today. But I want to focus on the positives that came out of this weekend for Tony, too. Because, yeah, Donnie picks up 2 more wins for the team, and Tony has a really solid run at Dover. And I feel like that's something that's not getting the credit it deserves, because it's kind of being overshadowed by a lot of the bad we've seen the last month and a half.
Well, you're right. It is, and it was good to see Tony run in the top 10 yesterday. And as you say, there were several things that came out of that press conference today. There was no real news per se. There was perspective. There was a lot of perspective that came out of that press conference. There was a lot of emotions expressed. There was a lot of thought and a lot of background as to kind of how Tony's been and what he's been doing and how these last few months have been for him. But I think one of the things that most interested me was that he seemed very optimistic about the fact that from the time he got back in the car at Atlanta, it was a good race car at Atlanta. They just had bad luck. He's had good race cars the entire time, the entire stretch here. Just, again, bad luck. But yesterday was an example of Tony running in the top 10 and for a while looking quite competitive. I mean, it was a good day for him. And I think he made some very good points today. It was a very painful press conference to watch because you did see Tony Stewart. He really let you into his psyche and his mental, his perspective, his mental state of being, and I think that took a lot of courage, and I think it took a lot of just wanting to get the truth out there and get it all out there as best he can. It just took a great deal of heart to do that. And I think it's a time for all of us to focus on the positives and focus on the fact that Tony still has a desire to race. Whether or not he ever gets into a sprint car again is not clear at this point. But he has a desire to race, which is a good thing. He has a desire to be around the sport, which is a good thing. He certainly has been keeping up with what his respective teams have been doing, which is a good thing. And I think it's great to see Donnie Schatz doing what he's doing, because it's a bit of a spark of life for Tony on that side of the fence. I mean, it's just it's a tough situation, and no matter where this all goes from here. The fact of the matter is that Kevin Ward is gone, and there's no getting around that. There's no, we need to just stop analyzing the crash and having opinions about the accident and stop. We need to stop focusing on that and start focusing on healing, because it's just not, it doesn't seem productive to just keep picking sides. And Tony made that statement earlier, and he's right. Whether you agree with Tony or disagree with Tony, or whether you believe it was his fault or Kevin's fault or whatever happened, there was a lot of things that went into that situation. And at the end of the day, Jacob, this is just a horrible, unthinkable tragedy, and no amount of he said, she said, he did, she did, they did, whatever is going to bring Kevin Ward back. And I think we all, as the media and as the racing public, need, in my opinion, to just stop talking about this and give the Ward family and Tony Stewart and everybody who was close to this and involved in this the opportunity to just finish grieving and processing this in their own way, without us influencing the conversation in any way, because the fact is, none of us, I don't care who you are, if you're not Tony Stewart, you're not Kevin Ward, you don't really know the whole story and you don't know what happened. So we all, in my opinion, need to just stop, and out of respect to all sides, just let this not go away, but just let them finish their process in silence and in peace, and just remember the positive things about Kevin Ward, and remember and support Tony in his efforts in his racing, and just keep our thoughts to ourselves. I think we've done way too much of expressing our thoughts over the last 6 or 7 weeks, and it's a very emotional, very sensitive situation, and I think it's caused a lot of people to turn into the type of people that that they don't want to be. It's just brought out the worst in some people, because it's been so emotional and so polarizing. So I really believe that Tony is on his way, a little at a time. We don't know if he'll ever be the same person he was. I don't really know how you go through an experience like that and come out the same person on the other side, but all we can do is pray for the best for everyone involved, and that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm just going to continue to pray and wish the best for both sides of this, because no amount of back and forth at this point is going to change any of the facts.
Period. End of sentence. Couldn't have said it better myself, and I'm not going to try to add anything to that, because I think you said it all right there, Tom. So what I am going to do is say that we're going to take this opportunity to take a caution flag, and when we come back, we'll finish up our dirt track conversation as far as recapping and results, and we'll get ready to lead into a really big featured interview in the second half of our show. We have paraplegic Midwest microsprint racer Eric Saunders still to come. That's coming up. But first, this business, you are listening to Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Stay with us.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading material supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a Motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit StockCarSteel.com or SRI-Supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
For every turn, a twist. For every start, an untimely finish. For every win, someone who loses it. For every number, a nation. For every celebration, a brawl. For every split second, years of work. For every heaven, a hell. For every good old boy, a good old girl. For every curse, a prayer. For every ounce of order, a jug of chaos. For every twist, there's a turn.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to tonight's Motorsports Madness here on Speed 77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Tom Baker along with Jacob Seelman and our revolving cast of characters here that we've had on throughout the show. Looking forward to talking with Eric Saunders, a very special young man from the Midwest who is a paraplegic and is not only a 600cc microsprint racer, he's a 600cc microsprint race winner and an inspiration to untold amounts of people all over the place. Looking forward to talking with him. But Jacob, before we do that and continuing in our Open Wheel Central theme, you hit me with a piece of news the other night that I certainly was not expecting. We were talking about the ASCS race, and you actually used the word punted. You don't hear bump and run or punted very often referring to a pass in a sprint car race for a win, but that's exactly what happened.
Absolutely right, Tom, and I think that might have been my favorite quote from over the weekend, and I will clarify, it wasn't a true punt for what our fender-loving fans might say, but when you hook the front bumper to the rear bumper bar of two sprint cars, you're in for a little bit of recipe of some fun, and that's exactly what happened between a three-way battle for the lead late in the going of the Hockett-McMillan Memorial at Lucas Oil Speedway in Wheatland, Missouri over the weekend. Derek Hagar, Jeff Swindell, and Wayne Johnson all going at it for the win late. Hagar I described the move. He kind of muscled, if you will, Jeff Swindell out of the way, went from the bottom, little bit of rubbing and as much rubbing as you can have in a sprint car, and Derek Hagar goes on to win the Hockett-McMillan Memorial. Big win for him. Derek was a good friend of Jesse Hockett for a very long time. From what I understand, the two of them very heavily involved in racing together at one point, and I know Derek's told me just yesterday that this is one of the most meaningful wins of his entire career, one that'll stick with him. Tim Crawley winning the Friday night portion of that event. Crawley just doing what Mike Ward and Tim Crawley do. They keep winning races, but couldn't take home the big prize on Saturday. And, Tom, that's what's funny, though. It seems like no matter what series it is this season, 360s, 410s, USCS, ASCS, Hagar up in the All-Star Circuit of Champions and a couple of World of Outlaws starts this year, it all comes back to two names this year, Derek Hagar and Tim Crawley.
And you just used them both in the same sentence there. Tim Crawley winning Friday, Derek Hagar winning Saturday. Wow. I mean, that's I still, you just don't hear of somebody moving somebody else to sprint car very often. Obviously, a bit of an ongoing feud there between those two particular drivers, and I think Derek Hagar, to a certain extent, Jacob, getting himself a good ride now and really, I think maybe feeling his oats a little bit. He may be wanting to assert himself just a little and sees the opportunity that's in front of him. It's one of those situations where you look at a driver in his position and you say, well, if you don't earn your respect now, you may never get to that level. And now that he's at that level, I think he may feel the need just to to get out there and let the veterans know that he's not going to be pushed over and pushed around, and that's what that sounded like a little bit. But again, when whether you're talking about ASCS or you're talking about USCS, you're still talking about the same brand of 360 short track sprint car racing, which is, these guys get it on every bit as seriously and as intensely as the World of Outlaws do. And again, I think it's a case of both series kind of being under-respected a little bit, or at least underappreciated by major motorsports, because you just don't talk about them a lot on a large scale. But both of them are extremely competitive and extremely intense, and both of them sharing Derek Hagar and some other drivers as drivers who kind of go back and forth between the two somewhat, but a lot of competition in both of those two series.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at that, I want to add yet another topic of sprint car conversation to this Down and Dirty segment, Tom, because this weekend we have one of the biggest Carolina sprint car races for 360s of the entire year. I'm excited for this one because I get to be up on the microphone for it, just like I was in 2013. This is going to be fun for me this weekend because we had 31 cars last year. It's the second annual USCS versus URC North-South shootout. It's not the first time USCS and URC have come together for a couple of races, but the second time that we're doing it at this portion of the year. First weekend in October, Carolina Speedway in Gastonia, North Carolina. Friday night, move on down to Cherokee Speedway in Gaffney, South Carolina on Saturday night. And looking at this, Eric Riggins swept the shootout in 2013, went out of the ballpark in April at Carolina trying to go 3 in a row, and now comes back with a little bit of a vengeance, having won the most recent 2 USCS races at New Senoia Raceway. I'm smelling the Carolina kid, and I'm smelling he may be back, and it may be a pretty big thing come Friday night if he can get to victory lane again.
I think it's going to be a long weekend for the rest of the competitors. If you want to know the truth, I think Eric Riggins is probably one again. I hate to use the same verbiage, but I think Eric's at a point where he could easily be competitive. I think he's good enough to be competitive in the world. In the World of Outlaws. I think he has that kind of talent, and I think he's ready for that kind of an opportunity. He just doesn't have the opportunity right now, so he's basically terrorizing the 360s all over the place. And he's just a phenomenal racer, and it seems like every time we go to Carolina Speedway and watch sprint cars lately, Eric Riggins is the fastest car in the place. He didn't have good luck back in the spring, but I think the road to victory at both of these tracks is going to go through Eric Riggins, and until somebody proves that they can beat him on his home turf when he's at his best, and if he doesn't have bad luck with a lap car or whatever the case, like he did this last time, I think he's going to be the winner. But of course, you got Terry Gray, you got a whole bunch of other racers, including a local driver that's starting to show some real ability in the 360s in this part of the country, the USCS, and that's Brandon McLean. I mean, Brandon's going to be fast, but man, I think Eric Riggins is just a super talent, and it's going to be a long night for everybody else if he's hooked up, because I don't know if you can stop him. You can only hope to contain him.
Absolutely right. And, I watched him climb the fence, and it was a very sketchy fence on Saturday at New Sonoya a couple weeks ago. And Eric says Carolina, not only is it his favorite fence to climb because it's his home racetrack, it's his favorite fence to climb because it's certainly very sturdy as well. And I know for the kind of victory celebrations that those guys tend to put on, they enjoy that. But, Eric, not the only contender. You talk about this being a combination race. The URC drivers are going to be coming down as well, Tom. And looking at some of the top contenders, you got guys like Josh Weller, who's running J.J. Grasso's championship winning car from last year. He's third in points, got a win on the season. You've got No Panic, Davey Franek. He's got a couple of wins on the year. I know that whole Franek team is going to be looking for a victory. Robbie Stillwagon has won with both the USCS and the URC, as has eight-time URC champ Kurt Michael. We expect him to be in attendance this weekend as well. And Kurt, one of only three drivers, the other two being Eric Riggins and Robbie Stillwagon, to win with both tours. And Kurt actually swept a pair of USCS versus URC events back about 8 years ago now. But, you talk about an eight-time sprint car champion in any division. It's something to be applauded. But Kurt Michael, one of the best, he's got nearly 50 URC wins, two of them already this season. And if he's in the house, I think Kurt Michael may be the guy to take it to Eric Riggins. If he can get a decent starting spot, I think that's the car you keep your eye on to maybe upset the party in the balance of power this weekend.
Well, I think it would be great to see a URC car win, because I think that would really make the show more entertaining for next year, in the sense that, okay, we have a little momentum from the Pennsylvania posse now. But you're right, and you're right. I mean, Robbie Stillwagon certainly is a driver who's capable of winning and has won with both series, and Kurt is one of the best ever to sit in a 360 sprint car for sure. But it's going to be fun, and it's good that the two organizations got together and decided to do this deal last year, because I think it's just great for the sprint car fan base on the East Coast to be able to come down here and see this show. And it's good for the Carolina sprint car fans to be able to see some of the boys from PA come down. But I really think that the one disadvantage that those guys have is that, again, it's a lot of travel, and it's a track that they don't race on but a couple of times a year. And you say, well, gosh, USCS doesn't either, but Eric Riggins has been around a while, and he knows the track, and some of the other guys from this area as well, same kind of thing. So it's going to be an interesting show for sure, and the turnout certainly should be fantastic. The 600 micros on the program as well, and that race is always a fun race. They're a neat bunch of guys, and some real talent in that class too, just percolating and waiting for the opportunity to step up into the sprint cars. So it should be a great show at both tracks, and hopefully it'll be a good weekend from a weather standpoint, and it won't affect the racing in any way, and the track conditions can be what they need to be in order to have good shows both nights and good turnouts. And I just hope they all stay right side up, because that's always the scary part.
Oh, definitely, and that's what we're all hoping as we get ready to do some business. We're going to take a caution flag, and as Tom mentioned when we came back from our most recent break, up next, we bring one of the most inspirational stories that this show has had a chance to cover to the limelight and to the front of the round table as we talk with Midwest micro sprint racer Eric Saunders about his battle through adversity, his 2014 season, and just getting things back on track after many things along the way. You'll hear Eric's story coming up after these words. You are listening to Speed 77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. We will be right back.
Race Chaser Online and Speed 77 Radio has gone live. All three of the Race Chaser Online Speed 77 Radio branded podcasts can now be found live on blogtalkradio.com. Look for Motorsports Madness Monday nights at 7 p.m., hosted by Jacob Seelman and Tom Baker, along with all of their cast of characters, covering everything from NASCAR, IndyCar, F1, Super Dirt Car Series Modifieds, World of Outlaws, Sprint Cars, V8 Supercars, and everything in between. That's Motorsports Madness, Monday nights at 7 p.m. Then on Tuesday nights, it's time to talk New York Dirt with Turn 5 Live, hosted by Steve Ovens, Clint Miller, and Brad Ovens. They talk everything from the local scene in the Finger Lakes to the national dirt racing news. That's Turn 5 Live, Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. on blogtalkradio.com/Turn5Live. Then on Thursday nights, it's time to go full fendered action with the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show, Thursday nights at 7 p.m., hosted by Tom Baker, Jacob Seelman, and Kyle Souza. That's the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show, Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Go to blogtalkradio.com/RaceChaserOnline, and for all of the news, views, and driver interviews, go to www.racechaseronline.com.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed 77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to the Motorsports Madness here on Monday nights, originating from the Queen City of Charlotte, North Carolina. We hope that all of you are enjoying your Monday evening as much as we are, and glad that you all could join us for tonight's broadcast. And we now have the opportunity to talk with someone that we personally feel inspired by, and someone that we're just thankful to be able to bring to you as a guest and share his story with you. We chronicled it last week on Race Chaser Online. If you didn't see the audio feature story, just go back to racechaseronline.com and just search, and you'll find it. And that is Eric Saunders, and we'd like to bring him out of the pit area and let him go full throttle with us here on the Madness. Eric, first of all, welcome to the broadcast. Thanks a lot for taking some time to talk with us.
Hey, thank you.
First of all, for those who aren't initiated, you are a Midwest former two-wheel racer. That would be motocross. And you suffered a crash a few years back that has left you paralyzed from the waist down. And through the recovery and all of the thought processes and all of that went into getting yourself back to some semblance of what's now normal life for you, you decided that you still wanted to race and to be involved in the sport as a driver. Talk a little bit about, if you would, just talk about the crash, talk about kind of what that entailed in terms of the recovery, and how did you get to a point where you end up in, of all things, a 600cc micro sprint, which many of us who follow the sport and understand the differences between the types of cars see as a car that's a very unruly car to drive. How did all this come about?
Well, my accident happened August 28th of 2010, a day of my 18th birthday, and I was just testing out on my
test track in my backyard, and it was a freak accident. I went off the jump kind of sideways, and I'm really not sure what happened, but I broke my T4, T5, and I had to go to Indianapolis, stayed in Indianapolis at Methodist Hospital for a month, and then I had to get a bunch of surgeries done, and it was just a crazy deal. And, you know, Tony was definitely there. He was helping me out, and then I went to rehab in Indy as well for another month. So I was down there for like 74 days or 75 days. It was a crazy deal, but, you know, for some reason I didn't feel right because I wasn't racing. And my dad and we talked, and I got Tracy Trotter, which he helped me out with motocross stuff from Calvo Coating. And, you know, we talked, and I really wanted to get back in racing. And, you know, with those people behind me, with Tony and Tracy Trotter, ended up getting the 600 mini sprint, and I started racing, which, you know, a lot of people think it's unreal, but, you know, that's my way of life, and that's my way of living, you know, to be able to race, and that's all I wanted to do.
I've heard you say a couple of times, Eric, that it's your passion and it's what you wanted to do. To get back to that point, though, I know you had a lot of different hurdles to try and overcome. What was the hardest part for you along that journey once you started rehab and the desire was still there to get back behind the wheel of a race car? What was the hardest part, or some of the difficulties that you experienced along that road to get back to where you could be behind the wheel again?
You know, the hardest thing through this whole thing was just not knowing if I would ever be able to race again. That's what really struck me. It just, I'm so passionate about the sport and anything with motorsports, and it was just a weird deal. Like I didn't feel like myself because I wasn't involved with the racing. And we ended up, so my dad's worked at Hoosier for a long time, and his buddy Ed Kennedy, we ended up getting involved with the dirt track here at Plymouth Speedway, and it was probably one of the best things that we ever done, because that way my family could still be involved with the motorsports, and we could still hang out as a family and do a family kind of deal, you know, because that's what it's all about, you know, family and being at the racetrack. That's all I knew growing up. But, you know, it was just basically my passion throughout everything with motorsports, and it was super hard because with the deal when I crashed, that's the only thing that really actually struck my mind was I'm not going to be able to race again. And that's the only thing that went through my mind.
You mentioned family, and I know talking about that's a big part of your involvement in motorsports. Your dad, Irish, a big player over at Hoosier, and I have to imagine that the support in the days, weeks, months, and now the years following the crash has never dwindled. Talk a little bit about the family aspect and a little bit about your dad, because I know he was a big part in helping you get back into a race car as well.
Well, you know, my family, we had so much support. You know, my dad knows a lot of people, and I'm very thankful for that. And it's just unreal, because I never imagined how many people my dad knew. And through this whole thing, it's made me really mature and made me really open my eyes up and see how many great people there are out there. And the thing with my family, you know, I'd be lost without my family, honestly, because with going through what I went through and having my mom there and my little brother there, and just my dad, my mom, or my sister, it's just unreal. You know, I mean, you can't even imagine even trying to explain what I've went through. You can't explain it. There's no way to even really explain it, because it's so overwhelming with the support that I've had.
I think the biggest question, when I heard your story, Eric, one of the things that leaped into my mind, it wasn't even the fact that you were getting behind the wheel again. It was the fact of the type of car, Tom alluded to it, that you were getting back behind the wheel of, because as Tom and I both talked about coming out of the break, these cars, the micro sprints, are very unruly to drive. No power steering. You really have to manhandle them. Why the 600 micro sprint? Out of curiosity, was there any particular draw to that class for you, or was it a matter of of necessity, trying to find where you could fit in and be able to go out and compete at a high level like you were used to?
Well, the micro, we end up looking, I mean, I had a micro when I was 12 years old, and I just really didn't like it because the way that I put it into words, I said, there's no jumps in it, it's not fun, but I was young, and I didn't really understand the whole background of that kind of racing. But with the micros, we ended up getting a concept chassis, and the guy that actually builds them is 5 miles away from us, so we wanted to get into micro. My dad said, you're not ready for a modified, you're not strong enough, and I just have to keep working at it, and to be able to actually drive, the way that I look at it, racing is racing. Any kind of car, I mean, I will drive anything, honestly, but the thing with the micro, it was just kind of a matter of time. Like, it just took time, and my dad said, this is probably one of the best things for you, and not only that, with the micros, people, they underestimate it because they think that it's so easy, but there's so much competition in the Midwest with micros. There's so many micros. Like, we had a open wheel Wednesday here at Plymouth Speedway in Plymouth, Indiana, and there was 55 or 56 micros that showed up that night, and we had 45 sprint cars. And to have that kind of car count, it was unreal.
One of the things that we've most known you for over the last couple of years, you've gotten back behind the wheel. You've not let this beat you. One of the slogans that has stuck with you and you've tried to get out to the masses is 4 words, real simple: I can, I will. I know from experience, just like you do, what it's like to overcome adversity, and it's certainly something that struck me with your story as well, knowing that some of the hurdles that you've overcome. Talk a little bit about, because I know you've tried to do a lot of work with maybe not necessarily trying per se to be that one that everybody looks up to, but just the way your story has unfolded, it's allowed you to use that as an opportunity to help uplift a lot of people in the Midwest and racers who maybe don't believe they have a chance. Talk a little bit about how some of that came about and some of the work you've tried to do recently.
With everything that I've came about and across with my accent, the people that have supported me, it's unreal, like I've said, but the thing that I want to be able to put out there the most is that you can't give up on anything. I mean, everybody struggles, but the thing is, some people are better at hiding their struggles. It doesn't make a person better. It doesn't matter about that. But the thing about it is, the way that I look at it is, I want to be able to inspire others and show them that you can't give up on anything. And my real big goal out of everything that I really want to start doing is I want to start a foundation, and I'm actually working on this product. It's called the Exo by Exo Bionics, and what this machine will do is it looks like a robot, and it's unreal what the technology has come about. But I've just had a meeting with them today, and the thing that I want to be able to put out there is this machine will help you walk, and to be able to show people that you can't give up. I mean, like I always said, I put it on my social media today. I said, the thing about people don't understand what technology will be able to do in the next 6 years, what technology will be out there for paralysis. And there's just so much stuff out there that is being found, and I believe that people should never give up on anything. It doesn't matter what kind of struggle you have. You shouldn't give up. I mean, there's no reason to, you have a life to live, and you're the only one that can better it. So, that's the way that I look at it.
You've done so much to better not just your own circumstances, but a lot of those who have come into contact with you along the way. And I know you just keep on pushing, Eric. And you talked a little bit about it earlier. You said you'll race anything that you can. I'm just curious now, you want to continue pushing. You want to continue getting stronger and continue trying to climb the ladder back towards doing what you love to do at an even higher level. is there any thought, any aspiration? Have you guys started looking so far into maybe being able to climb the ladder past the micro sprints? Is that a work in progress, or are you guys just taking it day by day?
We actually have. We plan on doing the micros next year, and then we're looking at getting into modifieds. And also for next year, what my real big thing that I wanted to do is they have the X Games for for people that are paraplegics, anything like that. It's basically any kind of disability for snowcross, and that's really what my big goal that I want to do, and get a ride to go out there to do the X Games, be able to show people that I'm still the same person that I've always been. I'm probably more motivated now to show people that you can do whatever you want to do, and nothing should hold you back at all.
And we've seen nothing hold you back so far, Eric. Just an absolute inspiration. And I know so much of this for you, you mentioned it's made possible through a lot of people. And I'm sure we'd probably be here all night. But I want to give you a chance to give some shout-outs to some of the people that have helped make not just the on-track stuff for you, but even some of the off-track support along the way. Give some shout-outs. Who makes it happen for Eric Saunders?
Well, first off, I want to thank the Lord for just giving me another chance, and show people that you can do whatever you want to do, and if you put your mind to it. And then also I want to thank my family, my mom and dad, my brother and sister, and also Tony Stewart, Tracy Trotter from Calgary Coatings, Randy LaJoy, Momo Racing Engines, Concept Chassis, Engler Injection, Simpson. There's so many people out there. It's unreal. Randy Sweet from Sweet Manufacturing. I mean, the list goes on. And just everybody that's out there supporting me and following my story. I just can't thank everybody enough. And it's a real blessing to have such great people.
It's a blessing for us to get the chance to talk with you, Eric. And we appreciate you coming on and helping to share your story. Stay with us for just a minute, Tom. I want to say thank you because this opportunity certainly to share Eric's story, it's been very special. It's one that I'm personally blessed to have the opportunity to have helped you with along the way, and definitely this is a story that a lot of people can look forward to and look up at and go, that can be me. I can accomplish.
Absolutely. And so we really want to thank you, Eric, for taking the time to come out and talk with us, come on and talk with us on the show. And most of all, we just want to thank you for the inspiration. Thank you for reminding all of us that no matter what our challenges are, we can overcome them if we just believe and have faith. And your T-shirts say it all. I can, I will, and for a lot of us, you do every day. So thanks again, Eric. Really blessed to have you as a part of tonight's show, and we certainly would like to keep track of what you're doing and would like to keep everybody as informed of it as possible.
Well, thank you, guys. I greatly, greatly appreciate it.
That's Eric Saunders, and we're going to take our final caution lap of the evening. When we come back, we will have our checkered flag laps here on tonight's Motorsports Madness as we attempt to do our best to divine who the winner will be in this weekend's NASCAR Sprint Cup race at Kansas. We're going to Kansas, Toto, when we come back on the Madness, right after
all I
these
wanted
words.
to do was just pick up a guitar and sing praise songs.
From IamSecond.com.
Well, when I got to 17, I was playing in after-hours bars, just in a bunch of trouble.
Grammy Award winner Michael W. Smith.
Smoking that first joint and feeling so guilty about it. From there, it was LSD, and your compass sort of just like disappeared. I knew where I belonged. I just couldn't get out. I was very depressed. I went on the floor and just began to shake. And I was just weeping. I was weeping. And I just began to just cry out for God. 12:30 at night, on the linoleum floor of my kitchen, the God of the universe came and wept with me on that floor. I know where my hope lies. It's not being a rock star. I'm a son of the High King of the universe.
Watch Michael's story at IamSecond.com.
For 17 years, Stock Car Steel has been a leading material supplier to the racing industry. We're proud they're a Motorsports content partner here at Race Chaser Online. The biggest names in NASCAR trust Stock Car Steel for raw materials such as carbon steel, chrome moly, DOM, aluminum, plastics, and much more. You can't build a race car without the basic materials, and Stock Car Steel is the place to get them. Don't forget to also visit Stock Car Steel's sister company, SRI Supplies, for racing and industry. SRI is the place to go for all your shop supply needs. Nuts, bolts, rivets, tapes, adhesives, cutting tools, chemicals, body shop supplies, paint shop supplies, lubricants, and more. A well-stocked race shop is a winning race shop, and the path to winning begins with 3 letters, SRI. For more information, visit StockCarSteel.com or SRI-Supplies.com. Check them both out on Facebook or call them toll-free at 1-888-752-7272, 1-888-752-7272.
I'm Jacob Seelman.
And I'm Tom Baker.
You're listening to Speed77 Radio,
powered by Race Chaser Online.
We are your home for motorsports.
Welcome back to Motorsports Madness here on Speed77 Radio, powered by Race Chaser Online. Jacob Seelman, Tom Baker, back around the round table as we get set to wrap up tonight's edition of the Madness, and now is the part of the show where we pull out our crystal balls and try to figure out what we can do. And I know this is a very complicated process for some, Tom, but I'll go to you on this one. It's time to see if we can't pretend to be smarter than the rest of the world on this, and I've done it 2 out of 3 times so far.
You have bragging rights for 2 of the races so far. I won last week with Jeff Gordon, so it'll be interesting to see where we all go this week. A track that's a kind of a traditional 1.5-mile track, but with the wrinkles out of it, kind of, sort of. Talking about Kansas, of course, and James, I'll start with you on this. As you look at Kansas, who do you see getting the win this weekend as we start the second round of the chase?
Well, I think you've got a handful of guys that you could pick from here. However, if I've got to make picks, there's one guy that I'm looking at in particular, and one guy who, as you like to say, is probably about a 2-inch reach off on the limb. But let's just look at the facts here. In the races at Kansas since 2012, it's got an average finish of 6.4. In terms of average finishes all time, he's the 7th highest driver. And he should have won at Dover, point blank. He had the best car until he had shock issues. And I think that at some point Kevin Harvick's got to win a race in this chase because he's been running too well not to win a race in this chase. I think this is the weekend that happens. I think this is the weekend that he brings Stuart Haas to victory lane and maybe gets a championship run going. Who knows? The potential is definitely there. He just needs to capitalize. So Harvick's my pick for this week.
Okay, that's an interesting pick. I don't know really where to go this weekend. My gut instinct tells me that this could be the track where we see an upset special. This could be the track where we see a Kyle Larson, a Jamie McMurray, a chase spoiler of some sort come to the forefront. But I got to tell you, I'm not one much. I'm great for the points, but I'm not one much for picking favorites just to pick favorites. I like to try and really think about this a little bit. And, you know, I really think as much as I just said, this is a track for upsets. I mean, obviously, Talladega, anybody can win who starts, but that's a different type of an upset. I think this is a track where a Kyle Larson could win just by simply driving around everybody and having a fast car, not because, there's a big wreck and somebody wins because there was a big wreck. But my gut instinct tells me that Dale Earnhardt Jr. is going to reemerge before this is over. Dale Earnhardt Jr. is going to reemerge, and he's going to get at least one win in this chase, if not two, on the momentum of Steve Letart's obvious departure after this year to go to the broadcasting booth. So I'm really thinking that as much as I love your pick of Kevin Harvick, and as much as I think that certainly he's going to be fast, my outlook is if Kevin Harvick's going to get a win, it's more likely to be the following week at Charlotte. I'm going to take Junior this week. A little something different. Junior ignites in the second round, and I think we see another one of the Hendrick drivers assert himself as a winner in this year's chase. Jacob, you're next.
Hang on a minute. Hang on a second. I need to wrap my head around the fact that you just picked Junior. Okay. That's not what I was expecting at all. Not even.
Well, is it really that far-fetched, Jacob? I mean, you got to remember that it's all in the Hendrick family. You can go with Jeff Gordon, you can go with Jimmy Johnson, you can go with Casey Kane, you can go with Junior, but that is. I think that, the 88 was among the fastest cars a couple of years ago when Regan Smith drove it because Junior was out with a concussion. Those cars are all fast at Kansas, and I think Junior's it's about time for him to win another one.
Okay. I guess I'll go with you on that, Tom. Not that Junior's my pick by any stretch, but that's interesting. That's really, really interesting. But thank you for letting me go last, even though I didn't win, and I'm trying to begrudgingly admit the fact that you did, and I'm disappointed by that because I only have a 1-point lead now. It kind of makes me sad, but I'm going to get back to 2 points ahead this weekend. You know why? Because I know a hot hand when I see one. I'm going to use Tom logic on this one. Who won at Kansas in the spring? Jeff Gordon.
Jeff Gordon.
Who won last week at Dover? Jeff Gordon. Who's going to win this weekend at Kansas and cement himself? Let's finish the logic here. Jeff Gordon is going to cement himself into round 3. I think they're calling it the eliminator round. I don't know where that got catchy, but Jeff Gordon is my pick to do the double at Kansas. He's going to get career win number 93 and shake this whole chase on its head. I'm not convinced that Keselowski and Logano are the dream team to beat. I think it's the drive for 5, and Jeff Gordon's going to continue it this weekend. Tom, final thoughts from you, because this has been an amazing show.
Well, it really has been a great show. It's been an inspiring show. This is we've been the last 6 or 7 weeks now dealing with all of the emotion and all of the tragedy that was the Kevin Ward situation and Tony Stewart and just so much emotion that's gone with that and today the emotional press conference and it's been nice to focus the majority of the show on something positive and to have Eric Saunders on and really be able to grasp how someone is able to overcome, really, as I put it in the story that I wrote, it was life interrupted for Eric, and then it became life gloriously rebooted. He really, he's just a true inspiration, and I just think this has been a fun show. We've really hit on a lot of different topics tonight, and so a few bombshells along the way, the Simon Pagenaud situation. So I'm looking forward to the weekend, guys, and it should be a lot of fun. Sprint Cup in Kansas, of course, going on around the country. Jacob, no matter where you're at, I love what Joe always says. Hopefully, go ahead.
Absolutely right. And with that, we are going to say our goodbyes here on tonight's edition of Motorsports Madness. We have got a lot more coming, though. Thursday night, it's the Stock Car Steel SRI Motorsports Show at 7 p.m. Eastern, hosted by myself, Tom, and Kyle Souza coming back with us from New England. We'll talk pavement late models, modified, regional touring series news, and a whole lot more, presented by our partners at Stock Car Steel and SRI Supplies. But for right now, for Tom Baker, James Pike, Kyle Magda, our special guests tonight, Eric Saunders and Cole Custer, Joel Sebastianelli coming in on the open wheel side, and the entirety of our staff, I'm Jacob Seelman. Race fans, keep it off the wall until we meet again. We'll see you at the racetrack and right back here Thursday night on the web. Until then, have a safe evening, everybody. Good night.